How can I stop self-sabotaging? I know what I need to do to feel better, but I just seem to constantly engage in behaviors that don't bring me closer to that at all. Okay, now self-sabotage is extremely common. I swear almost every human does it. And honestly, it's really prevalent when it comes to, doing something for yourself that's going to better your life in some way. Whether that be, being healthier or a career path or something, it seems like we are our own worst enemy. And most of the time, like, we really do have unlimited potential to be and do anything. It's just that we get in our own way. And that's really what self-sabotage does. And this basically happens because, like, self-sabotage in essence is you have these moral values, but your behaviors and your actions don't really align with what you're doing. So let's say, for example, like, you really value health and you want to feel better or have more energy, but you're constantly staying up late and binging on Netflix, or, drinking iced coffee when you know that in an hour or two you're gonna crash and feel like crap. Hey, Christina. We're just diving into Q&A, and one of the questions was, why do I keep self-sabotaging? I know that this isn't serving me, and I still seem to do these things anyway. So I'm just kind of diving into what self-sabotage is, but as you're watching, if you have any questions that are unrelated even to self-sabotage, drop them below and I will get to those as well. So self-sabotage is when, you have these moral values and beliefs, but your behaviors aren't really aligning with that. So if you're wanting to be healthier, but you're staying up late binging on Netflix, and you're drinking the iced coffee knowing full well that you're going to crash out in an hour or two, and you're not drinking the water, and you're stopping for fast food all the time, that's kind of one of the most common patterns of self-sabotage that we see is people sabotaging themselves when it comes to their health. So if you're kind of not sure if you're in that space where you're sabotaging yourself, a really good indication is if you're constantly remaining in your comfort zone because you're fearful to push beyond there. Also, if you tend to try and control other people, and not whether it be relationships or your kids, or controlling things at work, or micromanaging, that also is a fairly a good sign that you're sabotaging yourself. If you're making excuses for your actions or behaviors, you're probably self-sabotaging. But if you engage in risky behavior as well, like gambling or using drugs or drinking, that also is self-sabotage, and that's super common. One that is a little more subtle though, and not as extreme, is setting goals that are pretty low just to simply ensure that you succeed. And again, that's a way of staying within your comfort zone, staying comfortable. And of course, we know that the comfort zone is comfy until it's not. And then we'll do anything almost to get out of it. But often we stay in that comfort zone for so long because we're afraid to push beyond that. And once we start pushing or succeeding, that's when we start engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors. So there's a few different types of ways that we self-sabotage. One of them is procrastination, because if we never get started, we're never going to fail, because you can't fail at something you've never done. And perfectionism also is a form of self-sabotage. Often when you're procrastinating, people assume that you're just lazy or you don't care, but a lot of times you can procrastinate because you have perfectionistic tendencies. So you're so afraid that you're not going to get it perfect that you don't even bother starting at all. And it's so unfortunate because, again, society views the procrastinator as lazy, irresponsible, and somebody who doesn't care. But really, it could be that you just care so much and you're so afraid that you're going to fail that you don't even start at all. Self-criticism And the negative self-talk is absolutely a self-sabotaging behavior, because it is really hard to move forward and do anything when we are allowing our inner critic to run the show. And I did a whole video on how you can overcome your inner critic in here. I will post the link to that video in the comments after I upload the live, and you can definitely go back and take a look at that, because it is something that holds you back. And the further that you push out of your comfort zone, the louder that inner critical voice gets. And that's when you start listening to that voice and then stepping back and engaging in those self-sabotaging behaviors again. If you have poor self-care, that is a telltale sign that you're struggling with self-sabotage, because you're like, well, it doesn't matter anyway. Like, I'm just gonna remain in this comfort zone forever, and I don't deserve better, so why take care of myself? And resisting change. It is really hard, again, to push beyond your comfort zone and move forward when you are afraid of change. And when I was in massage school, I worked at a union hospital, and some of these ladies had been there for way too freaking long. Like, they needed to retire. A lot of them had come up on like being there for 30 or 40 years. And any time that our bosses would come up with like a change that actually benefited us and the patients, it was met with so much resistance, because they didn't want to change what they were doing, because they were so used to their daily routine. They could do their job with their eyes closed, essentially. And then as soon as it was brought to their attention, like, hey, there's a better way that we maybe could do this, it was completely shut down immediately, because they resisted change. And therefore, the care for the patients never improved, and the happiness and longevity of the staff, it's still the exact same. And I only know this because I still have friends and family that work there, and it is all the same. And that's a dangerous place to be if we're never ever improving or moving forward. So now that we've kind of went through what self-sabotage is and the types that you might experience, I'm going to walk you guys through how you can stop with the self-sabotage. And I mean, the very first thing, of course, is awareness that you're even doing this. So I want you to think of some of the things that you value. For example, maybe you value health, and let's say you're staying up late and drinking iced coffee instead of eating a meal. And once you are able to identify, okay, these are some of the behaviors I'm engaging in right now, and some of the thoughts that I'm having. If you start turning inward and maybe make a daily practice of journaling some of your behaviors and some of your thoughts, it's going to really help you in identifying when you are actually engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors. Some of us are pretty aware, like, I'm totally sabotaging myself right now. A lot of times we're completely unconscious to it, but it's very easy to become aware that you're doing it. So journaling on what your thoughts are for the day, what some of the behavior patterns and thought patterns are that you've kind of been engaging in regularly. And then you're going to be able to find a pattern there. And that's really going to give you the upper hand when it comes to tackling this, because now you're going to know when it's coming. So for example, you probably could hear my dog shake her ears. What a sweetheart. She just woke up from her much needed nap because, you know, she slept all night and all morning, and it's lunchtime now. But becoming first aware that you're even doing this and what some of those behaviors are, so that the next time that you start engaging in those behaviors, you can ask yourself the question, okay, is this helping me or hindering me? Because every habit, every action that you take is either moving you forward or keeping you stuck. And so journal those behaviors down, all those little things that you do. As you move throughout your day, keep track of some of the decisions, the actions, the behaviors that you've taken throughout the day. Did you choose to stretch like you knew you needed to? Or did you sit and watch TV instead? Did you choose to read a book and expand your mind? Or did you choose to scroll through Instagram and TikTok all day instead? And once you've become aware and you actually have a list of some of those behaviors, as soon as you start engaging in them, you can like stop it like that and go, okay, I've just scrolled through TikTok for 25 minutes. Is this helping me or hindering me? And it just makes it a lot freaking easier to move forward from there. Now, I think sometimes too, when we are perfectionists and we are self-sabotaging, it is because we feel like we have to take on everything all at once. So setting really audacious goals, and not that I'm against that, I am not at all. I think we should dream big. But sometimes we set these audacious goals, and if we are in a perfectionist mindset, it's very difficult to even take action because we are so afraid that we're going to fuck it up somehow. So when you are setting goals, make sure that they're meaningful. So there's nothing worse than when somebody sets a goal to lose weight for their wedding, because who is it for? Is it actually for you? Or is it because you're afraid to post your photos on Facebook and people are going to comment about your body behind your back? Like, are you really going to strive towards that goal for those people? If it's not meaningful to you, it's going to be really hard to actually succeed at that. So make sure when you set your goals that they actually are important to you and meaningful. And don't underestimate the power of taking a few small steps. I mean, that's how you change your entire life. It starts with one action. So if you woke up today and you're in that place where you're always sabotaging yourself, waking up and going, what's one thing that I can do today to move me forward to achieve this goal? If you want to be healthier, maybe that means that you set a goal to drink 2 or 3 liters of water that day. And then maybe the next day you do it again and again. And then when it becomes habitual and you don't even think about it anymore, add in the next thing. Maybe that means going to bed an hour earlier instead of staying up on your phone and scrolling through social media. And once you've mastered that, day after day, adding in something else. We usually try to take on the whole freaking thing and change all the things all at once. And then it's just so freaking overwhelming that we quit. Nothing even has time to form as a habit because it's just too much all at once. You know, you often see in January, people all of a sudden are drinking their water, following a meal plan, they joined a gym, they hired a trainer for a workout program, and they're changing their sleep schedule, and they're trying to meditate, and they're trying to journal every day. And they've literally tried to take on everything without slowly building these healthy habits. And it's just too much for us to take on all at once. So do not underestimate the small steps, because that is what leads to the greatest results and the largest transformation. And it's not a race. I mean, you have your whole life to change, evolve, and transform. Do not feel like you're behind. You have your entire life to do this. So take the small steps. Don't underestimate how powerful those little steps can be. Now, this should go without saying, but your inner critic is a little bitch. She is fucking mean. She's super mean. So when you are struggling with self-sabotage, you need to be patient and kind with yourself. Like when I find that I am self-sabotaging, because I still do this too, you know, sometimes I'm supposed to be filming things like this, or writing the Instagram post, or, you know, filming a video for a course that I'm making. And sometimes I do just want to scroll on TikTok. And it's easy to do that, and then I could become really angry with myself for doing that and go, what's wrong with you? Why are you sabotaging yourself? And then just shit on myself for it, and then it just makes everything so much worse. When I catch myself doing things like this, I'm like, oh, Melissa, you sweet, sweet, cute little human you. Look at you sabotaging your success. And then I'm able, from that place of compassion, to investigate further and try to figure out, like, why am I doing this? Why am I sabotaging myself in my business? Is it because I've never made this much money before in a month and I almost feel like I don't deserve it? Am I afraid that I'm gonna make it and then never be able to sustain that anymore? Like, let's investigate here. And it's way more productive to be kind than it is to like completely dump on yourself for being a human, because we are all human. And even coaches have coaches, myself included, because I'm still a human at the end of the day, just like you are. And we need that. It's easier to have somebody on the outside looking in to help you out. It's really hard to see it when you're in it. So be kind to yourself. That should just go without saying. But when you are self-sabotaging, it's really easy to basically just pick yourself apart and put yourself down for being human. But we need to remember that like that's all we can be. And so give yourself a little bit of grace. And the last thing I wanted to say for, overcoming self-sabotage is we always focus on like what we're bad at. So where our weak spots are, let's say you're really good with like, socializing and whatever, but like you're terrible with organizing, and maybe your house is a mess all the time because like organization just isn't your thing. Well, most of the time then you're just going to focus on the fact that you're disorganized and dump on yourself for it. But there's like so many other things that you're good at. So I really want, when you're moving through self-sabotage, celebrate your strengths and lean on them. If you're not great at being organized, but you're great with, building relationships and have amazing social skills, lean on that. Don't focus on your shortcomings and your flaws. We all have them. We all have strong suits and weak points. And so stop focusing on the weaknesses and really focus on bringing up your strengths, because they're going to be able to carry you through, whatever you want to achieve. And, like even as a business person, if you're really weak in certain points, hire people that have those strengths, or, have a discussion with a friend or somebody that you trust about that's good at those things, and see what can be done. But instead of constantly focusing on what we're bad at and what we're weak at, we really should be focusing on what we're good at and play to those strengths. And again, self-sabotage is very, very common. And I mean, we all do it. It's very, very prevalent when it comes to health behaviors. So if your actions aren't matching your beliefs and your morals, that's when you're self-sabotaging. So if you're constantly thinking, I'm just somebody that always gives up, every time I start a health journey, I just quit after a couple weeks. If you're operating on that belief system, but then you're trying and making an effort to carry out actions that are healthy behaviors, your subconscious is eventually going to be like, wait a minute, we're somebody that gives up after a couple days, and we always quit when we try to do this. So like, these aren't actions that the quitter does. And then that's when that self-sabotaging voice comes in and convinces you to skip the workout, to stay up later, to drink another cup of coffee, even though you're crashing out from caffeine and it doesn't feel good. And so if you're still operating under the belief that you're always that person that gives up, start investigating the stories that you have about yourself a little bit, because it's usually in those stories that we find where our self-sabotaging behaviors are coming from. And once you figure out what those beliefs are, you can start to shift those. So for example, if you believe that you're the person who always gives up after a couple of weeks, and that's just how it is, find evidence where you have followed through on something in your life to its entirety and you didn't give up. Maybe you're not great at like being consistent with your workouts, but you did like a 4-year program in university and finished it. So find evidence of other areas of your life where you actually did follow through. And that's going to help you shift those beliefs so that you're not like, I always quit, that's just what I do. Because you don't always quit. You're going to be able to find evidence in other areas of your life where you've been successful. So I hope that was helpful. I am going to hop off now, but of course, once I post the replay, if you guys have any questions at all, fire them away underneath, and I will answer